Okay, I'm going to call to order the December 13th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. First item is to approve the November 8th, 2022 Planning Commission minutes. Do I have a first and a second?
I move we approve.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 6-0.
Randy, I did just hear from Rob and he is out tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Move on to item number 3, the staff report.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. Excuse me for my voice. It's going to go in and out. Staff report's going to be relatively short. Hopefully, we have, I just ran a permit report just so we'd have a better understanding where we're at since we're almost at the end of the year. Today, as of today, we've had 58 single-family residential permits with a total value of $16,740,950. And then with commercial, as you all know, we have a lot of commercial from last year that's still under construction or still working through it or is just now finishing up. This year, we've only had 2 new construction permits for buildings to come up. But we've had 15 tenant finishes, which is a remodel of a building. And for example, on the agenda, we'll have another site plan for outside of a building that's going to have several permits issued for it for tenant finish. But of those 17 total permits on commercial side, we've had a total of $6,525,676 in value. Those are what are the basis that moves forward for setting the assessment levels and then ultimately the property tax levels for the city. That's all I have. If you have questions, I can discuss any particular project that's moving forward that you may have seen.
Does anybody have any questions for Jack? If not, we'll move on to item number 4. Do I have a first and a second to discuss the revision of fencing regulations?
To discuss the revision to fencing regulations. So what's next in the process?
Well, if you all approve this and send it to the Board of Aldermen, it'll go to the Board of Aldermen next week for first reading and January 17th for final reading.
So we need somebody to make a motion to approve.
Well,
Or is
that's,
this a-
you just did, I think.
Okay.
Move to discuss and approve, and ultimately the language. I haven't looked at it since the day after the last meeting where you gave me your clue of what you wanted. I put it all in here the next day so I wouldn't forget it. And then I forgot about it until last week. So if there are any issues that anybody sees with the language, I think I've incorporated everything you've mentioned in it. The highlight being we have completely taken out the electric fences provision. As you've requested, that go directly to the Board of Aldermen separately.
I did read through it and it looked like you'd covered everything that we had discussed.
Okay, good.
Seeing no further discussion or questions, Brandy, would you take roll?
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
Billy. Deb,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Mayor Boley,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
6-0.
The agenda next Tuesday night in front of the Board of Aldermen.
Move on to agenda item number 5, site plan review, 122 North 169, former Price Chopper Building. Yes, John.
I move to approve the site plan review for the 122 North 169.
Second.
Thank you, Dennis. Any questions or discussion?
Do we have any idea yet what kind of tenants they're looking to bring in there?
I have not heard specifically on anything. I understand there is a tenant identified in the rear portion. But they haven't specifically given us any definitive update.
So not the 7 small ones.
Yeah, it's the part down by the riverside.
Okay.
On the site plan document you have, it's the one that's labeled tenant. But we don't know who it is for sure. There's been speculation. I don't believe it's going to be a retail outlet, but that doesn't matter. What I suspect versus what issues a permit. If this is approved, the interior remodel permits, we can cut loose immediately. But it's the exterior remodel portion that we can't cut loose on the permit side until such time as you guys would approve it and the board then takes your recommendation of approval and approves it next week as well.
Any other questions or comments? Brandy, would you take roll?
Mayor Boley. Dennis,
Aye.
Deb,
Aye.
Billy.
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier,
Aye.
6-0.
I'll move on to item number 6 to open a public hearing on rezoning northeast corner of Second Creek Bridge Road and Loman Road from A1 to R1B and R3. If any member of the public wishes to speak, make sure you filled out a comment card and then you'll be asked to provide your name and address and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. So if you have not filled a comment card out, that's what you need to do at this time.
Okay, we have the applicant Clayton Cox.
Hey, my name's Clayton Cox, 215 Doubletree Lane. All right, better?
Yes.
All right. So we bought the property to do single family homes, affordable homes for around like Smithville area. And do some townhomes or duplexes on that as well. And I don't know what else you want me to say.
This is your time to speak.
I'm currently selling it because of, I have a private investor, so we're transferring over to another sale, but I'm still gonna be involved with everything else. So, that's about it really.
I'm Shane Crease. My address is 13530 Mount Olivet Road, Smith Mill, Missouri. And I'm one of the applicants as well, and also the developer of the project. And so I just wanted to discuss a few of the key bullet points associated with the project. I think first I'd like to note that the project has been designed to be in compliance and to complement the vision of the city's long-term comprehensive plan. Another point is the project will help fill a much needed void in the housing in the city of Smithville. I'd also like to note that this project is being 100% privately funded with no requests for any type of tax incentives. Also, this project will provide additional tax dollars that will benefit the Smithville School District. And one of the primary goals of this project, kind of like Clayton had mentioned, is to provide housing that fits the budget needs of first-time home buyers. The homes will be offered for sale to the public, and the development is not based upon rental homes. Each townhome lot will consist of 2 homes per lot. Lastly, I hope you see the value this project brings to the community, and I appreciate your consideration of this project.
She's not here. She's not here. Hope she's not outside.
Jennifer Langston Justice.
I'm Jennifer Langston Justice. I'm at 13317 Mount Olivet Road. I speak in support of this project. I was involved in the vision planning of 2019, and it was made abundantly clear that Smithville has a growing and aging population. It was noted throughout the process and included in the comprehensive plan that Smithville absolutely needs more housing and more neighborhood options. We have an opportunity here to provide housing for those much needed options that were wished for. Currently, our model does not serve any of those that work within our workforce, such as teachers, firefighters, and police. Building attainable housing that is available for purchase will help build a stronger, more involved community. This development also provides needs for our current residents who anticipate a change in their housing needs. When the strat planning was done, it was concluded that 41% of respondents stated that they anticipate having a change in their housing needs in Smithville in the future. There was a clear desire from the majority of our community to have alternative options for their future versus our current model, which is 3-4 single-family homes. It is our opportunity to provide great housing for our community, keep more residents in Smithville, and work with a local, not out-of-state developer who wishes to embrace our comprehensive plan, provide housing for our community and for our future. By developing the strong partnership with developers like Shane who wish to serve our community, we can have a win-win for our future. Thank you.
Will Reuter.
Good evening. My name is Will Reuter. I'm the Executive Vice President at the Home Builders Association of Greater Kansas City, located at 600 East 103rd Street in Kansas City, Missouri, 64131. I apologize for not being able to be with you this evening, but I came before you this evening to speak in general support of residential construction development and some of the difficulties associated with it. In residential construction development, many of the costs associated with bringing a plot of ground ready up to a buildable lot is fixed. Same amount of roads, same amount of sidewalks, same amount of utilities, only the service lines would be different depending on the number of lots available for construction. And so the fewer number of doors able to be put on an area of buildable land does result in a requirement really financially that those units that are able to be built wind up coming in at higher costs in order for it to pencil. The general rule of thumb in the Kansas City Metro is that for every $1 of development costs, typically you can multiply that number by 5 and get a pretty accurate representation of what the final product of the house or home will be upon completion and construction. So if a lot is originally $50,000, you can anticipate the possibility of putting a $250,000 home on there. However, if that lot is $100,000, you can anticipate a $500,000 home. So really, we're talking about these upfront costs that do have a consequence for the diversity of price and product that are available on the market today. As was stated earlier, there was 58 new starts through the first of the year for the first 10 months of 2022. That is in contrast to the 653 new family starts in Clay County. So just shy of 9% of single family starts for the entire county occurring in Smithville. The Metro in general needs about 9,000 new single family homes a year, new doors for families to live in a year in order to just meet the current demographic demand. And 6,500 new homes were started over the course of 2021. So we are behind. We are not building. We are not capable of building currently at the rate that the market is calling for, both in volume and velocity. And so we do encourage our governing bodies to consider the future housing needs of their communities and start taking actions immediately, so that in the coming months, as we emerge out of these strange economic times, that there are buildable lots available for families to ultimately build their home on. New home ownership in general remains one of, if not the only way to build long-term economic and financial stability that exists in the American economy today. And so those things that do promote and generally encourage home ownership are things that the Home Builders Association of Greater Kansas City generally supports. Thank you very much for your time this evening, and I appreciate the opportunity to contribute virtually.
Hello, everyone. My name is Roberta Lohman, and I live at 16251 Lohman Road. And I am asking you all, I am opposed to the way the plat has been set out now. I brought copies of my contract that was totally contingent with my agent, Dan Hartman. That would be single family homes. And I have copies for all of you to look at, and what the price range of those homes would be. Mr. Hartman was very much aware that I would not sell that property if it was going to be multifamily homes. And it was agreed upon and put into my contract of what it would be. So I'm asking if you all will take into consideration to review this. I do have a lot more information coming, but I unfortunately was unable to get it all together for tonight's meeting. And if you would consider, after looking at what was in the contract, to postpone until the next meeting, I will definitely bring all the information that I have in addition to this contract. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Derek Ramsey with the Kansas City Regional Association of Realtors. I was asked to come this evening and say a few words about the current housing market and why a project like this is so important to our region. Since COVID-19, we've seen a growing trend of homeowners selling their more traditional large lot suburban single-family homes and seeking somewhat smaller, easier to maintain homes with more amenities. This transition is most prevalent in the active adult sector, a crucial segment of the home buying public, and one that only stands to grow as millions of baby boomers nationwide transition into the next stage of their lives. Add to that the fact the Federal Reserve's rate increases have made buying a single-family home with a large yard even more cost prohibitive, driving increased demand for more affordable options like attached single-family homes that are proposed in phase 3 of the project before you this evening. Since 2010, the population of Smithville has grown 22%, nearly twice the rate of Clay County overall. And yet data from our Heartland MLS shows that only 34 new construction residential homes have been sold in the 64089 zip code this year. Research from the National Association of Realtors shows that in Kansas City metropolitan area, 1 new single-family housing permit is issued for every 4 new jobs created. And with the 30-year fixed mortgage rate hovering around 7%, the average mortgage payment for homes such as the ones to be built in this proposed subdivision is approaching $1,000 more per month than a year ago. Just like the rest of Clay County, the state of Missouri, and the entire country, Smithville needs more housing options at all price points to continue to grow and prosper. Building more housing choices, as this development would do, gives buyers options when considering Smithville as their new residence, and it helps to ensure the people who serve this community can live in this community as well. Thank you.
Good evening, Jeff Blomker, 1404 Northeast 182nd Terrace. I speak to you tonight in favor of the proposal before you. As a longtime advocate for entry-level housing in our community, this project would allow opportunities for our young professionals to establish roots in Smithville. As you're aware, we have a significant deficit of these type of homes that would allow our nurses, our teachers, and other young professionals in our community to not only work here, but live here and establish and plant roots and grow their families here. I encourage you to stick to the findings of the fact that this plan does indeed meet the comprehensive plan and move this along to the next stage. Thank you.
Dirk Talley, 17270 Highway 169, Smithville, Missouri. Here in support of the project. It's kind of funny, I'm on this side of the fence. I'm usually the guy, the developer, or presenting the project. I'm neither one, but I am in support of it. They're following a comprehensive plan. I've been a developer for over 25 years. I've actually worked with the current developer and actually with the engineer of the project. My personal advice for those, Jack, and correct me, they are not bringing the first and second versions of the plat today. Is that correct?
Right. There are
So this is
issues
just the
with,
rezoning.
yeah, this is just zoning.
So my advice would be to those that do have concern is be more involved when it comes time to bring forward the plats. That's when you can more have an effect of what that project could look like. You can voice your concerns with the developer, voice your concerns with the engineer and the city at that time. So it's my speech.
I have more questions then. Okay, there's only one more. Dan, you ready?
Good evening, Madam Chair and Planning and Zoning Board. My name is Dan Hartman, 408 East Meadow Street, Smithville, Missouri. And I've had the unique opportunity to be involved with this project from the beginning. One of the things that you see in front of you that was shared from the seller was still the absolute intent of this subdivision. During the process, as you heard from the applicant, Clayton Cox through Midstream, his private money gal, essentially called a note, which would be what a bank does. And so he was forced to begin to sell the property. So this property has been for sale. The sign's been distributed out there. I believe it's not only on Zillow, Realtor, signed, and the original seller had every opportunity to purchase the entire property along with anyone else. We had a few inquiries about the property, but we did have a contract come forth, and their intent is to move forward with the intent of building single-family residence. As Dirk Talley alluded to, getting caught up in the actual preliminary plat, and we're finalizing that, and Doug Schulte, the engineer, will have be able to present that on January 10th, and of course, open to your questions. But there's never been any other motive than to move forward with providing housing for those who can attain that. And so that, I just wanted you to know that. And as one of the public comments, I'd encourage you to stick to the finding of facts, and we'll be available for any questions. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Deborah Mahoney. I live at 2600 Loman Road, Smithville, Missouri. And I have to say, I've never been to one of these meetings before. I actually just found out about this 3 or 4 days ago. And I am not opposed to development or housing, but I do feel there are some serious issues with that piece of property. There's flooding, the smell. How many of you folks live there? Drive by 3 or 4 times a week. There's a stench. So for someone to have affordable housing, should they have to be subjected to that? They would go in unknowingly and they couldn't barbecue. They couldn't swim in the pool. They couldn't do anything because the smell is so bad. Also, a lot of the lower income developments have a tendency to look like army barracks. I don't think we've seen, the monstrosity up on W are just south of W, army barracks, am I right? Yeah, army barracks. So we really don't know what this would look like. When they say $250,000 houses in today's market, that's not much of a house. So, I mean, I'm definitely opposed. We do have some concerns. Like I said, I'm not opposed to developing affordable housing. I just think that that is the wrong piece of property to do it. It has a lot of issues. So would there be any widening of the roads? There's a lot of questions, the increased traffic. You know, I don't think any of this has been addressed. I'm just curious. So basically, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Seeing no more comments from the public, I will close the hearing, but I will state that now that this is your last chance to speak on this, because once this is closed, there will be no more comments from the audience on this. So this is your last chance to speak this evening. Nobody else is going to come forwards, then this,
There's somebody on Zoom raising their hand.
oh, okay.
Nick. Nick. Mary.
Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak? Okay, Nick.
Yes, thank you. I didn't see an online comment card to fill out, so I apologize. I hope I can speak freely. My name's Nick Doman. I live at 2630 Loman Road. I wish I could have made the meeting in person tonight, but thank you for allowing me to speak. Following Deborah's comments there, I too am not opposed to development, and I agree that Smithville does need additional development. The issues with the property that she spoke of, especially concerning the smell. I live probably about a little over a half mile from that property. And it's very frequently that we get a strong odor from the treatment plant that's in that, basically the backyard of that proposed development. Has there, perhaps I can't ask questions, but I would like to know, has there been any attempt to address that problem with this development? Obviously, that is going to put additional load on that treatment plant, potentially causing additional odors in the area, especially that new subdivision. So I hope that that's being addressed and that can be overcome. Access to the site, looking at the plan, the existing roads, Loman Road and Second Creek. I did not see any improvements to that intersection. Obviously, that will put additional load on that. I would like to have some further discussion on that as well. I hope that's being considered as part of this rezoning in this plat. And I will also second Mrs. Loman's comment about the multifamily residences. I am certainly in favor of single family residences. I don't know. I just found out about this meeting probably about 2 hours ago. So I haven't been able to fully read the entire document, but it's my understanding that it will be both single family and multifamily residences, perhaps in a lower price point, and which I'm not opposed to having those in areas, but I'm not sure that this is the proper area for such a thing. So I would be in favor of a single family subdivision, assuming that we take proper precautions and making sure the entrance and egress and the roads are safely developed to maintain the increased traffic flow, and that the waste treatment facility is, the problems with that facility, I would assume exist, or at least the odors can be handled adequately to not cause it additional
Okay.
problems.
Sir, your time's up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else via Zoom that would like to speak?
Okay, and seeing no more comments from the public, this hearing is now closed. Move on to item number 7. Do I have a first and a second on the rezoning of northeast corner of Second Creek Bridge Road and Loman Road from A1 to R1B and R3?
So moved.
Discussion? John?
So, I mean, a couple things that was brought up quite a bit by folks is, the smell and the flooding issues. What's gonna be, what can be done to address that? Because I mean, I'm just thinking of the city 5-10 years down the road when the citizens complain about the smell and flooding and then blame the city. I just want to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up for failure there.
Sure. As it relates to the flooding issue, any development would have to be brought to 1 foot above freeboard or where the flood level is, just like any that it requires that, whether the floodplain is here or up Owens or wherever it happens to be. So there would be some grading involved to bring the multifamily area up. The rest of it is not in the floodplain. The multifamily area on the proposed plat for next month is the 17 lots to the east as it relates to that. As it relates to the sewer smell, that actually is generally caused by the homes that are real far away, because we've got a massive force main system. So all the waste that's in those force mains sits for a couple of days as it works its way down when the pumps come on, and that's when it gets rancid. So the new interceptor that's down, that we just installed down through here, this would drain directly into it. This stuff would be the first stuff in, the first stuff out. It wouldn't have much time to do anything. It's when we have a rain event, we get all the extra water. But all of those things are in the future CIP process that city's looking at, including expanding the plant, et cetera. So that is what it is. The smell is what it is. It happens on the days when the clouds or the barometric pressure, whatever, turns such that it keeps it down, and it floats right along that river. It comes all the way down here. So there's not a lot we can do associated with that smell. When it happens, it happens.
But the changes you were just talking about, that would mitigate that somewhat?
Well, ultimately, when we get out of the force main scenario where we have waste sitting down on a hill, having to be pumped over the hill, when we ultimately expand the system to interceptors, that lessens the amount of time that stuff can sit in the pipe and stew. So it comes out faster. So yes, and that's only with future development. That's why that's on the long-term CIP and the short-term.
So correct me if I'm wrong, by doing something like this, that kind of moves things along quicker?
Well, and one of the things that this scenario does from a financing standpoint is, and I don't know, one of them mentioned, somebody mentioned it in the public hearing, when you have more houses on shorter amount of pipe, it's easier for us as a city to maintain it. And we have more people paying for it to maintain. So it becomes more cost effective in those scenarios.
Jack, I've got a question along with that. Not so much what can be done about it at this point, because right now we're just talking about rezoning the property.
Right.
Correct?
Yes.
A lot of this discussion that we're having would have more to do when we were looking at the plat. Would that be correct?
Yes, and it's a double-edged sword as in part. The adequacy of the utilities and the services is part of the findings of fact. And in order for you to make that finding that it's adequate, is that all those costs go to the developer. So in order for this to have adequate streets, adequate, all those things, that's on the developer to do. That process is identified in the plat itself. We were hoping to have all of the city's engineering review done of their engineering to make sure everything worked and what road improvements needed to be made, et cetera. We just didn't have the last bit of data on the traffic study. So since we didn't have that traffic study completed in time to get it reviewed, we have to bump it a month, and then we'll come back and same scenario. It won't be related to zoning. If the zoning pass, it'll just be what road improvements, what sewer improvements, what park trails, all those things. That's what we're trying to get finalized. Like I said, the only thing we don't have right now of any significance is the traffic study review complete.
Could the audience please
Uh,
refrain from talking until, if you need to talk, step outside.
The other question I have, Jack, is regarding the contract that we were been given. Is that something that we should have city council look at? We're not attorneys to be looking at this contract, in my opinion. So if we were going to look at what was mentioned by the seller, is that where that would need to go in relationship to what we're doing? Or does
Well,
that have any
ultimate-
bearing?
Well, ultimately, I would ask you to look at it from this perspective. Whether you agree or disagree with either side of the story, you have to apply that to the proposed findings of fact. And which one of those proposed findings of fact does that issue address? So if it's,
About that, I can't fit that into a category here,
Yeah.
but I do have a question about that.
Okay.
and that's why the procedures are the way they are, so that you focus solely on what the state law requires. Here are the issues. If you can fit it in one, yes. If you can't, then no. And that's within your purview to make those evaluation.
I do have a comment regarding single family versus multifamily. I just finished the Mid-America Regional Council webinar for planning and zoning commissioners, and some of the things that were brought up was perception of single family versus multifamily. In a duplex or a townhome situation where you've got basically two homes together, it's still single family. It's single family attached or single family detached. Multifamily comes into play more when you've got a quad or a tri or an apartment complex. So even though you've got townhomes, 2 to a lot, the use is still single family, not multifamily.
One last thing I'd like to clarify. The plat document that is referenced in the zoning is so that you can identify where the multifamily versus single family is. That's the sole aspect of it. It's not that it's a conceptual plan or anything like that. It's that so you can identify the proposed lots 1 through 17 would be the R3. All other aspects of it would be the R1B. Just if that was a question, I wanted to clarify that. And again, the plat is proposed, depending on what happens here, obviously, in the board level. The plat would be proposed to come back on the January 10th meeting to discuss the lot division, street improvements, all those other things.
And do we have a minimum size lot?
Yes, yeah, we have. All of these lots meet the minimum sizing. They had to actually address the multifamily from 18 to 17 because they have a very specific, apparently square footprint of the properties they wanted to put on there. And I indicated to the engineer, it didn't look like it'd meet the 30% max coverage. They were too big, so they had to lose a lot to make it fit. So if you see in the original notice that went out, it talked about 89 dwelling units. Now it's 87 because one of those 18 lots had to drop. It had to be merged into the others to give enough square footage for the footprint that they're proposing to use to fit.
Any other questions or discussion? Then do we need to, Jack, go through each one of the finding?
Well,
of
that's up
facts
to
and
you all.
conclusion?
You
Do
can-
you want to go over each one? I'm asking the committee now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Do you want to go over each item?
This, I think we probably should,
Okay.
so we have it all on record.
The findings of fact. Character of neighborhood. Anybody have any questions or comments on item number 1? Are we all good on number 1? Number 2. I guess for the audience, I should go back and tell you the title of each one of these finding and facts. Number 1 is the character of the neighborhood. And we're looking at, does this proposal fit the neighborhood? Number 2 is the consistency with the city's comprehensive plan and ordinances. So then we look at, does this zoning fit consistently with what the city has established? Anybody have any concerns with item number 2?
I don't have a concern, but I would say that this is exactly what the comprehensive plan calls out, so.
Yeah, it's
It
adjacent to
definitely makes
commercial
those.
and other subdivisions. You're spot on, John.
Number 3 is the adequacy of public utilities and other needed public services.
Sounds like we have plenty of sewer. Water. Everything else.
Too much, yeah.
You know, I think the other concerns obviously will be addressed with the plat, so.
Any more comments on number 3? Number 4 is this suitability of the uses to which the property has been restricted under its existing zoning. And here I will go ahead and read the current use has been farm pasture, but the subject portion of the land is undeveloped at this point in time. So again, suitability of the use. And then I think you could look back to how will this fit into our comp plan moving forwards? Any other comments on that item? Number 5, length of time the property has remained vacant as zoned. I don't think we question the fact that it has been ag for quite some time. Compatibility of the proposed district classification with nearby properties. I know a lot of the adjacent properties are in fact single-family residences, even though it's a little bit more of a rural area, I would say, at this point in time. Any other comments or questions on number 6?
It matches our comprehensive plan for infill development. I mean, everything around it is developed, so. Less of a burden on our utilities.
Number 7, the extent to which the zoning amendment may detrimentally affect nearby property. Comments there? Number 8, whether the proposed amendment provides a disproportionately great loss to the individual landowners nearby relative to the public gain. And I think as we've heard today, we know we need more housing. And number 9, that in rendering this finding of fact, testimony at the public hearing on December 10th, 2022 has been taken into consideration as well as the documents provided.
And I've corrected that to 13 on the
Okay,
final document. I
okay.
apologize. I cut and pasted a whole bunch of stuff at once and December 10th fell through because I had January in my mind. The January 10th meeting is the next one.
Having bullet pointed the finding of facts and seeing no additions or subtractions to what's been presented, I'll read the recommendation of the Planning Commission, which is based on the foregoing findings of fact. We conclude that A, this application and the rezoning of this property from A1 to R1B and R3 is governed by section 400.620 of the zoning ordinance of Smithville, Missouri. B, the proposed zoning is compatible with the factors set out in section 400.560C of the zoning ordinance. And the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Smithville, Missouri does recommend approval of rezoning the property to R1B and R3 as shown on the proposed preliminary plat. Having went over that at this point in time, I will ask Randy to call roll.
Mayor Boley,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes.
Deb, Billy.
Aye.
Melissa,
Hi.
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
6-0.
This will go to the Board of Aldermen next Tuesday night, same time, same place. For first reading of an ordinance to adopt that zoning. Second reading will be in January, the second meeting in January. Excuse me. The first meeting in January, but it'll be the third Tuesday. Sorry for any confusion it may have caused.
At this point, I'd like to have a first and a second on postponing item number 8 and 9 due to the fact, as Jack had mentioned earlier, they do not have all the necessary traffic studies at this point for us to move forward with item 8 or 9. So I'm looking for a first and second to postpone those.
Second.
Brandy, call roll.
Dennis,
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
Melissa. Mayor Boley,
Aye.
Billy,
Aye.
Deb,
Aye.
6-0.
I'll move on to item number 10, another public hearing. We will open a hearing on rezoning a portion of 18601 North 169 Highway from R1B to R3 with a conceptual plan overlay. Again, if anybody wishes to speak, they will have 3 minutes to speak. And you'll provide your name and address.
Anthony Luca.
And and I will clarify, I think you're going to do a little bit more presenting, so we are giving you 6 minutes instead of 3 minutes. Okay.
Randy, make sure you get him the mic.
Not very convenient, but we will try.
What was that, Jack?
Not very
Randy should-
conveniently, but we can probably.
She can pull up
try.
the packages from the website and
That would be great.
the PDF should be pretty easy.
And before you start, I won't start your time yet. I will again say, if there's anybody out here in the public that wants to speak, make sure you fill out a comment card.
Just open up Chrome. And just go to the city's website. It's already got link there. Packet. You're on the PDF or the PowerPoint?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, just scroll down to. It's where it looks like this, Randy.
I think it's page 35 of the packet for this meeting. Perfect. I'll try and talk through this without pausing to advance slides too frequently, but I just wanted to make sure everyone had a chance to see what is involved with this new project. So I guess to start things off, my name is Anthony Luca. I'm the architect on the project, speaking on behalf of the Herzog Foundation. My address is 1722 Main Street, Kansas City, Missouri, 64108. Like you guys had mentioned, we have a handful of folks here on behalf of the project to speak positively for the project. I'm going to absorb one of those members' time so I can speak for 6 minutes and make sure we get through this packet and make sure everyone can fully understand the project as presented. I guess to start out, we were here 2 months ago requesting a zoning to B3 for a project called the Herzog Lodge. During that meeting, there were numerous members from the community that had stood up and offered their feedback and their thoughts on the project. Since then, we have taken that feedback into consideration, reevaluated the project, and I'm going to kind of walk through this revised approach that we are taking. So our previous submittal requested zoning to B3. Obviously, that created some concerns about the breadth of potential uses and how they would support the comprehensive plan. After hearing the feedback, we obviously agree with that and are coming forward with a different proposal that we feel fits in much more nicely with the comprehensive plan and the surrounding context. So we have revised from the B3 we were originally seeking for a zoning of R3P with a planned development overlay. The planned development overlay allows us to then place additional restrictions on top of the already allowed R3 zoning. And obviously, the R3 zoning allows us to stay within the residential classification that that site already is zoned as, which has some benefit. The B3 zoning would have allowed for hotel uses for commercial benefit to the owner. However, the Herzog Education Center is not a hotel, nor is it being built for commercial purposes. Its primary purpose is to be an education center, supporting the mission of the Stanley Herzog Foundation
with dormitory rooms that allow for overnight stay of the center's guest. We feel that this use better aligns with the currently requested R3P zoning, which allows dormitories, not hotels, as a use. The front end of this document, we kind of walk through the mission of this foundation, the mission of this education center, and in the short history of the foundation in Smithville, what they've already done to the community and are planning on doing for the long term in this community. The city's comprehensive plan has set aside this land for civic and institutional development. That is defined by the city as uses that include but are not limited to educational facilities and campuses, libraries, places of worship, and other community-oriented areas. We feel very strongly that this project is directly in line with the comprehensive plan set out by the city and aligns with those community-oriented uses and educational facility uses. The foundation's mission, as we state in the document, is to provide trainings and conferences to better train leaders who are molding the next generation. These events will be a time to share best practices and cutting edge ideas from national thought leaders. Focuses will include institutional management, classroom management, and civic education for public and private school educators, and leadership training for civic leaders. We also feel that the Herzog Foundation is a stable and reliable presence in the Smithville community. They are a mission-driven institution that is focused on mission and not driven by profit. They are engaged in the community. And if you go to the slide, Brandy, if you go down maybe 2 or 3 slides there, you'll see a list, go one more. You'll see a list of local organizations and schools that have already benefited from grants from the Herzog Foundation. And if you go one more, Brandy, you will see a list of local business partners that the foundation has used to support their operations and had a positive economic impact. The foundation is also a job creator in Smithville. 28 new jobs have already been created at the current Herzog Foundation, with an additional 15 jobs planned to support the Herzog Education Center. The Herzog Foundation will be a good neighbor through responsible design through responsible designs and maintenance budgets that will allow the grounds to be taken care of to the level that Smithville deserves. Also, I guess that kind of concludes the main points, Brandy. And if you want to keep going, we can get into the actual layout of the project.
11 seconds.
Wonderful.
How much longer do you need?
I want to go
send
through
this?
I just want to hit on the restrictions that we are
Okay.
adding to the B3 zoning.
Okay.
So if you go up to, so the B3 zoning, there's a list of permitted uses. We are essentially restricting every single use except for dormitories. So any alternate use that this site would ever be used for would require another public hearing and another alteration to the city's underlying code. We are restricting any of the other conditionally permitted uses to further limit what can potentially happen. The way this conceptual plan overlay is written, this is the project that's going to work on this site. Anything that changes will require another public hearing. The big thing is the height restriction. So under R3, the height restriction is 5 stories. That is frankly too tall for this site, and it's taller than the foundation would have ever wanted the project to be. So we are adding a restriction to us that we will limit the maximum structure height to 2 stories, which is in alignment with the adjacent neighborhood development, any residential development under the current Smithville planning. We're also revising the setbacks to increase them even further than what is currently outlined. The front setback currently required at 55 feet. We are increasing to 100 feet. The side setback, which is currently at 7.5 feet, we are increasing to 40 feet. which is in the following page. So that at a high level is the project. I know we have a handful of other folks that will come up here and support on behalf of it. Thank you all for the time.
Kind of jumped in on this one, ad lib. I was really here for the first one, Dirk Talley, 17270 Highway 169. I was actually, those of you that might remember, I was actually in on the first session when Herzog Foundation first came in. I'm a member of the Catholic Church. And I think Melissa, believe kind of rings true, or what I remember you saying during that zoning is that what I think they're going to bring to the community looks, can't remember your exact words, but looks stunning, or and I think it's nothing short of stunning. It's become kind of a hallmark or a benchmark of what we see coming into town. So I think this is just an extension of it. So I'm in support of it.
Good evening. I'm Daryl Jones. I'm the president of the Herzog Foundation. I pastored for 35 years in St. Joseph before taking this role and moving to Smithville. And I'm very glad that all of those folks that were here earlier left, or I would have been tempted to take an offering, and that would just be inappropriate. I've prepared a packet for each of you from local businesses who use the cater, as well as local schools and area schools who've been beneficiaries from the foundation and our work. The local businesses are caterers that we use. We have over the course of, we began operation 2 years ago, but we actually began functioning over the course of the last year, where we realized a major part of our focus was going to be educating educators in how to run a small business. Most educators know a lot about how to educate children, but they know very little about how to run a cash flow, how to do strategic planning, how to work with boards. And so we have found our niche is really serving to educate educators and to be a school for schools. And so we have, over the course of the last year, brought in, actually we've educated nearly 600 educators from 41 different states. And this new building that we're proposing, the Herzog Education Center, is only going to allow us to increase our capacity as well as be more efficient with our dollars to be able to do that. But the vendors that are speaking on our behalf are because every meal that we have had for 3-day conferences for 50 educators have been catered, breakfast, lunch, and supper, by local vendors. And that's our plan. We want to be neighborly. We are a part of Smithville and a part of this community. Our mission really is to advance Christian education. That's our primary goal and our focus. We're doing it locally. We're doing it with schools from around the country. But I will also tell you, while our primary focus is Christian schools, it has been interesting to me the number of public schools that have benefited from the trainings that we have done, specifically civics trainings, history trainings, and a number of public educators that are coming to be trained at the Herzog facility. But we're finding that what we're doing can be done more efficiently with this new building that really does serve for a number of breakout rooms and small group rooms that our current facility just doesn't have. So enable it for us to do our mission more efficiently. That's where we believe that this facility will be so important. We do believe that it does fit within the long-term planning of this commission, that it is a school of sorts for schools where we educate educators. And this civic and institutional purpose is very much in sync with our mission. In fact, we're talking about ways in which we can provide, even locally in Smithville, parenting classes beginning in 2023 right here at this facility, working with churches and working with schools. You know what? If I had a nickel every time somebody thought that, that would be great. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
I'm David Horrocks, 18405 North Main. I was here at the first meeting. So what I was just looking at that, so they're gonna come out on North Main there again. So the road is what we've been, the question we've had a lot about going on here, because it's gonna add more traffic. Is the city willing to take over this road from the county? I had a discussion with Jack about this, and the city right now shares with the county 1.5 miles each. With that 1.5 miles each right now, the Smithville gets all that money from that's brought in for those roads. So that leaves zero for the county to maintain that road. That was the discussion we had. Because the county takes in 7%, 7.5%, they have to pay the city 15% right now. So that's the discussion we've had with the county on this road. Another thing, the sewer, that's going to add more pressure onto that line. So I know that the mayor said something about gravity feeding Owen Creek branch, and that branch would come up to that area right there. So that's some of the questions I want to know, because if it's going to add more pressure to that line, is it going to bust again on my property? Is the city going to take care of that? They took care of it the last time when that line broke on me, and come up there and redid that line where it busted. But when Archdeacon put that line in, there was no inspections on that line. So this is going to add more pressure to that line. So are we going to do, I don't mind them putting what they're doing up here. It's beautiful what they're doing, but let's take into consideration, are you guys going to take over the road and start taking care of this road with the added traffic? Because the county is not. They don't have any money to do it. Where on that road is about 9/10 of it is in the city. The rest is not. So what are we going to do about that part of that too? I have no problem with what they're doing. They're doing a beautiful job. Looks great, but what are we doing with these infrastructure stuff on this? Are we going to be suffering this part of this road breaking down?
Your time's up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, Scott Reedy, 18608 Woodruff Street. I live in the Wildflower subdivision. And I am a member of Good Shepherd Church right next to the Herzog Foundation. So I drive by this building every day, and well, I tell you, I just feel like we are blessed as a community to have this organization, not only for the great mission that they do, but they just built a fabulous structure. And the landscaping is probably worth my house times 5. It is just unbelievable, first rate. And so as they think about building this lodge, and I like the adjustments that they've made here. Boy, I just think this is a win-win for our city. To have a building like that with, again, I'm sure that's going to be first rate, first class, landscaped incredibly well. It takes that land and just beautifies it. But it also gives, these people are staying currently out at the airport in a hotel somewhere. It brings those people into our community and gives them a place to stay. And, to me, it's just such a win-win. They are great neighbors. They've been really, really good to us as a Good Shepherd, strong communicators. And you couldn't ask for a better neighbor. So thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jamie Champlin and I live at 208 Doubletree Lane here in Smithville, Missouri. I've been a Smithville resident since 2011, and I have two young children who attend Maple Elementary. I am the finance director for the Herzog Foundation, which I joined in January of this year. The Herzog Foundation is very excited to be a part of both Clay County and the Smithville communities. Clay County, as we heard earlier, is one of the fastest growing communities in Missouri, and the Herzog Foundation will only help increase its economic growth. In just 2 short years at our current headquarters, the foundation is expected to drive over $6 million into the Clay County economy. It has already created over 25 new jobs with an annual payroll of between $2 to $3 million. The foundation's training and events bring over 1,000 attendees annually to Smithville, and we use local vendors to provide food, beverages, services, and supplies for these events. The foundation also invests locally in Christian schools and in local causes such as chamber events, the Smithville Community in Action, and Clay County 4-H. The Herzog Education Center, through its mission to further excellence, both in private and the public education sectors, will significantly increase the economic benefit to Smithville and Clay County for years to come. Thank you.
I wasn't going to speak, but I just couldn't help it. My name is Todd Graves. I live at 8460 E Highway in Edgerton, about 10 miles west of here. I'm the chairman of the Herzog Foundation. John Elliott, another board member, there are 3 board members that control the foundation, and we were asked by Stan Herzog to give his money away, which is a pretty daunting thing for us. And we take it very seriously. He had guidelines on how we do that. But the reason that this is in Smithville community, greater community, is because we're in the Smithville greater community. John lives west of Smithville. I live northwest of Smithville. And St. Joseph would love to have this in their community. Kansas City would, Weston would, but it's here. And we wouldn't put anything here that we weren't proud of, because I drive by that facility, if I'm not even going there, at least twice a day. And it's going to be first class. The whole institution, I think, is going to be a great benefit to Smithville over the next 50 to 100 years, just in terms of what it's going to bring into the community. And so we're proud to have it here. We want to be good neighbors. We're not some outsider that just plops something down here. And we hope that the community will continue to support us. Thank you.
Trudy LaForce.
Yes, I'm sorry, had trouble unmuting. My name is Trudy, Trudy LaForce, and I live at 411 Northeast 188th Street. And my property is east of the Herzog Foundation property. And when they first applied to build there, I was told that the object of that building would be to educate people in how to raise money for scholarships for individuals to send their children to Christian schools. And so I was under the impression it was more of just a business there, and that was what they were doing. Well, then the next thing a couple years later were the cabins, which I was not aware of before that, but became aware of it and have seen the work done there. The problem I have is that now they seem to have changed to being an education center. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it wasn't in the original information that I received. North Main Street is an issue. And even though the Herzog Foundation spent a lot of money in their initial phase, and especially around the cabins, I believe they did a lot to contain the water that flows from north of 188th Street and goes through that property and under North Main onto my property. But it has since flooded on North Main since all that work was done. So that does not take care of the problem. The next thing is that I was told, or I read, that the design of this dormitory was, the consideration was given to the surrounding buildings, etc. Well, the picture that I have from the city website doesn't really look like anything I've seen around here. I know across the street from that area, there is one big metal building. It was not built as a barn. It was built as a private storage and workshop for someone. I have a barn on my property, but it was built for animals. Now, the next thing is that a dormitory is to house beds, places for people to sleep. Will there eventually be like a kitchen in there? What are the long range plans for that? Or will that just kind of morph as it goes along? And also, I want to make sure that I'm understanding that the main entrance will be off North Main. And if so, I am very interested in that because there have always been problems with that area. I also read in all of the material that was on the city's website was something about some of the things would be considered after the site plan review process. Now, is that what is happening tonight, or is that a different process? And if so, who's involved in that? And the other thing is, what would the height of this building be as far as where it fits into the surrounding buildings, such as the Catholic Church's utility building at the back of their property? I drive by there every time I leave my home, and I really am interested in knowing the details. And because it's also on one of the subjects listed, it says that subject to the site plan review, that process will require a traffic study. Now, who all is involved in that? And will we be notified? Because I know only people with property within 185 feet of this area had to be notified.
Trudy,
So I
your
would
3
just
minutes
like
are
more
up.
information. Thank you.
Mr. McGuire?
You're still muted, Mitch.
Yeah, I just had to find the mute button. Sorry about that. Mitch McGuire, 18511 North Main Street. So I'll kind of hit on the street maintenance as well and the flooding. I was at the last meeting. That's my concerns as well. I believe we heard last time they were going to do some street repairs on the north side of North Main, sidewalks, and upgrade the road as well. So my question to that is, what do we do with the city, with the south side, the remainder of North Main through that mile stretch as well? The flooding as well, culverts. I've talked to the county, the city as well, right? So I know it's been an ongoing thing for the last year or more. Certainly for Dave in the past history as well. So I look at that. I'd like to see some answers on that side of things. Last time there was mentioned busing people in and out from airports and all that stuff. So looks like we're going to have a lot more commercial traffic on North Main. So that kind of concerns me on the way the roads are right now as well. So I'd like to see what the upgrades are going to be, see a site plan on all that. I keep hearing an economic plan. I don't know what that economic plan is from the Herzog Foundation. How does it benefit the city for taxes and stuff like that? So it's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, Doug? Okay, if Doug does not want to speak, we do have one more person in the audience who wanted to speak last, and that is Heather LaForce Ward.
I'm Heather. My mother Trudy speak on the phone. I live at 411 Northeast 188th Street. We do have the property that's been in our family for over 100 years. It's directly to the east of North Main Street. We have serious concerns about North Main Street. First of all, it's not even in the correct position that it's supposed to be. Okay, again, it still floods, even though they have done what they have done with their drainage and everything, it still floods out. Okay, they have built, I will give this to them, they have built a beautiful building. They have put millions and millions and millions of dollars into that, and we do appreciate that being their neighbors. I drive by it every day, at least 2 or 3 or 4 times. It started out where they have the big building, and then we have the cabins, and now we have this dormitory. They knew when they came to Smithville that we had one motel hotel here. They knew that was not adequate lodging for the people that they were going to have come in. So I'm not sure why this is coming up now instead of in the original plans. Like Mr. Horrock said, the maintenance of North Main is horrible. Okay, when I had to take North Main back and forth to work every day when the road 188th was closed because Herzog was redoing the road, the potholes are horrible. You drive like this around them. Okay, there is no maintenance on that road. So I second his opinion that if you all are going to approve this, that the city of Smithville needs to take responsibility for North Main Street. You need to make sure that the sewers are up to date for it. You need to make sure the drainage is up to date for it, because like my mother said, it's a marshland on that side where they want to build. The water comes down, it goes under the road and right into our property. And that is a problem right now. And I don't want to see that become a worse problem. Okay, I'm also concerned about, it's not a hotel, but it's still lodging for you still have 75 rooms. You still have a lot of people coming in and out of there. I don't think it's the proper place for it. I have nothing, the foundation is a wonderful foundation. I think they're doing great things, but I do not feel that this is the correct place to have this lodging. And I think it should have been in their original plans to begin with. So the city needs to take some responsibility if you all approve this with the road, the drainage, the sewer issues on North Main Street. And the foundation, I'm sure it's going to be another beautiful building because they have millions and millions of dollars to spend on it to have it fit in. But there's some responsibility from the city side too if this is approved. Thank you.
I'll give one last chance for anybody else that would like to speak. Oh.
Doug, would you like to speak?
You're muted still, sir. No, that hand is the mouse. I just saw what you were talking about.
Well, yeah, you can. At this point, I will close the hearing. And we will now move on to item number 11, the rezoning a portion of 18601 North 169 from R1B to R3 and conceptual plan. Do I have a first and a second?
So moved.
We have our finding of facts. I think I will start with just saying, I think Herzog, you did really good job in your presentation tonight, and I think took to heart what we discussed 2 months ago and came back with the plan that you did now. So I do appreciate that. I'm sure I'm speaking for the entire committee.
Yeah, I'll say that. I think that this new plan, it looks phenomenal, actually. I think they really took into consideration, making sure that, this is properly screened. And I'm just looking at the picture, with the building and then all the trees surrounding it. So I feel like just that view is going to be kind of obscured a little bit just by the trees. So I think it's just going to kind of fit right in with that
They
natural
also
area.
added the gate, so I'm assuming that's going to limit some of the traffic going out on Main. It's going to force it to go back out the other way, I'm assuming.
Well, I think that's the only way it can come out, right?
Yeah, they can go across, yeah, if they're parked on the other side, but yeah. It also has a lot of water detention. The detention basins on this thing are massive, as they are on the current project, so I'm not too worried about that. And I know there's some road improvements mentioned
I mean,
as
what-
well, which is putting it on the actual straight where the road should be, right, Jack?
Yeah, actually, just to clarify, and it was mentioned, I think, by a couple of the people during the public hearing. Because of the amendments that you all recommended and the board approved to the site plan ordinance and that site plan review, that will be the location where the consideration of what street improvements, what water improvements, what sewer improvements, those types of things are needed. So we will address all those type things at that hearing. That's sometime after they give us a building. That's also where you address the building facade, what it would look like. All of those things and how they tie together. This concept plan, to clarify, and I apologize for the 10th in your draft findings of fact as well. I did the same thing, copy and paste, but the findings of fact and conclusions of law is what you do. The ordinance is the document that's behind it. And that's what the Board of Aldermen would do. I've already, my original recommendation or thought was to incorporate this entire packet into the ordinance. However, the significant issue, to be quite frank, for you to look at would be the restrictions that they're posing. And I have crafted language that would be in a new subsection 2 that kicks everything else down, that defines what those things are specifically as they've identified them, eliminating certain provisions of the code that they can't do without coming back to, and it would be a conceptual plan review amendment, and that is just like a zoning amendment. So they, as they indicated, they'd have to come back, notify the neighbors, all those things would again be triggered. My purpose of my comments is more procedural than anything else. We will address the road improvements, the curb gutter, all that stuff at the site plan. And that's where also they have to provide us with their traffic impact study. We need to know what that is. I don't know their schedule on this, but you also need to be aware, if you can remember, when they first started the original foundation, there was a question as to whether we could coordinate with MoDOT, the 188th Street stuff. Well, the building's up, it's open and done, and MoDOT hadn't started. I understand, we've seen the utilities relocate, but 188th Street and 169, those improvements with the turn lanes and the like that MoDOT's handling should start this spring. So I don't know if they're going to coordinate their work with them at the same time. How that works, we will be addressing that when that gets submitted. But from the findings of fact document you have, the proposed findings of fact, the adequacy of those utilities, we have plenty of water, plenty of sewer in the area to cover all of it. It was all designed to handle 120 more homes where the Catholic Church now sits. So those issues were addressed at that time. So adding this to it won't even reach the level of what a single family, 120 single family homes would. So the pump station's giant down there. It addresses all those concerns.
So as far as when we see that plan, right? Can it even come to us without ensuring that the road improvements are made as
Well,
necessary?
Yes, it can. I can tell you from a staff perspective, it won't, because we want it fixed too. To be quite frank, so do they. The question is how much they have to do and all that. And we've got an ordinance, luckily, that sets out the rules on how that works, and we'll follow that. So yes, when it comes to you at that time, you will have a list of all the improvements that we've negotiated from a staff perspective. And you can thumbs up or thumbs down at that time if you think that's enough or not enough. That's part of the purview.
I guess is what we're looking at here with going to R3. I guess I have a question for somebody from Herzog, whoever wants to answer it. I know I said on planning and zoning, when it was very first presented to us, of the main building and the cabins. And so I guess my question would be, with adding this other facility now, did this grow to be more than you had even anticipated as far as people coming to you guys for training? I mean, did this evolve from your original thought process and planning?
1 second, could you grab the mic?
Yeah.
And while he's getting up here, I did want to,
Your voice projects everywhere but onto the
Yeah.
internet.
and before he speaks also, somebody had asked about hotels and why this wasn't in the plan. I myself and Dirk and others have met with multiple hotel developers and they've unanimously said they're not interested. We don't have the ability in Smithfield to occupy a hotel 90% of the time. They would get them closer, but it wouldn't be 90% occupied of 200 rooms. So.
We're seeing the training is absolutely. And so with that in mind, we started doing these trainings that was not.
Did you hit the button on the, it's red. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, over the course of the last 2 years, we've seen the training is really a niche that's really needed across the country. And so seeing the need, what it is, and as we begin developing the trainings, the cabins are just not sufficient to do that. And we're literally taking people to Kansas City to, to house them. And so we feel like we can be more efficient in the long term of the mission by bringing them here, keeping them here, and honestly, giving them opportunity even to recreate here as well, as opposed to having to drive to Kansas City for that. So it's evolved.
Okay, 'cause
So
I
that-
remember in the beginning, we talked about the cabins being where
Right.
these individuals would stay.
Right.
And it has evolved. And
Yeah,
it was just-
exactly.
It evolved quicker than you thought it was
That's
going
correct.
to. or-
That's correct.
Thank you.
It also sounds like it lessens the traffic burden, having those people not driving back and forth to Kansas City every day. If they're coming up here for training.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? If not, finding of facts, do you guys want to go across over each one of them like I did the previous one?
I think it's necessary.
Or are we okay
I'm okay.
with what has been presented to us to move forward with voting? Okay, Brandy, would you call roll?
Alderman Chevalier. Melissa,
Aye.
Billy,
Aye.
Deb,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Mayor Boley. 6-0.
Okay, we'll move on to another public hearing. Open a public hearing on Herzog Educational Center subdivision, one lot. Again, anybody who'd like to speak, you'll have 3 minutes and provide your name and address.
If I may.
Okay,
This is Jack Hendricks with the City of Smithville. I wanted to clarify, ordinarily, this would be the location where we address street and other off-site improvements is in the subdivision process. However, with recent revisions to our site plan code and site plan review process, we've incorporated all of those provisions into the site plan review. So to avoid having a traffic study completed before the building is and the size of it. So the study has to be pretty particular as to what can be used on the site. And then they have to extrapolate up to all the potential uses. And so our recommendation was and is, don't do anything here. We've got a site plan. They won't be able to build anything until such time as a site plan review is committed, because it's also R3. If it was a different zoning, it wouldn't necessarily have to do it. If it was R1B, you don't have to do site plan. So just wanted to clarify those issues procedurally, why they are not here.
thank you, Jack. Do you have anybody to speak from the public?
David Horrocks, 18405 North Main. On the traffic study, and you guys just said that the highway department's gonna start doing a turning lane right there on 188. Did the city come forward they've got more pull with the state on the highway up there? Why didn't they push for a roundabout right there at that at 188th and 169. That would be the logical thing to do because they're doing 55 mph to 70 mph coming out to that road, and you can't see over that hill to the north. So you're gonna add more people coming out that entrance right there. So I say the city needs to push the state to do that roundabout right at that 188th street right there. Because that would slow the traffic coming into that road. It's gonna save somebody's life. Because you have, when you come up to that road, you have to turn right to even look to see down to the north. To see anything. And if somebody's down in that pocket, down in that valley, and they go ahead and turn out, and if they're doing 70, 80 mph right there, they're gonna smash somebody. And it might kill somebody. I hope not, but a roundabout is gonna be the best solution right there to slow everybody down. With the added people coming from Herzog's, that's gonna help out a lot. So if the state's gonna start doing it come this spring, that's what Jack just said, right? So why waste that money doing a turn lane when you could push for a roundabout with the state? Okay?
Not see anybody else from the public to speak, so I will close the hearing. Move on to item number 13. The Herzog Educational Center final plat. Do I have a first and a second?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes, John.
I will say that MoDOT has licensed engineers that helped figure out that turning lane and what's needed at that intersection, correct?
Yeah, to be quite frank, they evaluated, for David's edification, they evaluated a roundabout and rejected it as not appropriate for the area. But all of the other concerns, which are geometric design issues, are being addressed. So that intersection will drop about 5 feet.
They're taking the dip out. in other
Yeah, they're
words.
taking the mound out, so the road's gonna come down a little bit. As I understand it, I haven't seen the plans yet, but I understand they're gonna raise the low spot a little bit too, to help take some of that out. And then they're gonna have a left turn lane northbound and a left turn lane southbound and a right turn lane northbound. So they're gonna put turn lanes on 169, not on 188th Street, but they're gonna drop the intersection to take away, to be quite frank, he's precisely right, that visibility issue, when they drop it and redo the intersection, that's what it's for, is to take those concerns out.
Similar to what they did to Berry Road decades ago,
Yep.
because they used to call that Bloody Berry for
Yeah.
a lot of the same reasons.
Yep.
So
And the other aspect of it is this MoDOT improvement was triggered by a traffic study for a residential development east of here that is still not come back forward. But that traffic study identified that all the turn lanes were already needed, and MoDOT was aware of the geometric problems with it. So that's why it's all being done. If you've been through that intersection recently, you've seen relocation, utilities relocates going on up there. That's what all those cable companies are doing, is they're dropping their lines and putting them, they're probably 12, 15 foot deep now because they're getting ready to skin off 5 foot off the top. So, and that's supposed to start in the spring, as I understand it, but it may not, I don't. It's
We'll
about
hope.
the-
We'll
yeah,
hope.
yeah.
They've only moved it a few
Yep.
times, so.
Yep.
So moving back to item 13, we have a first and a second. I think we're ready for Brandy to call roll. Or not roll.
Okay, Billy,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
Mayor Boley. Dennis. Deb. 6-0.
To clarify, the previous item will be on the agenda next week for first reading. This item will be put in abeyance until the meeting in January in front of the Board of Aldermen because the ordinance has to pass for rezoning it in the conceptual plan before we can do the plat. So it'll all tie together at the same time anyway.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, third.
Good luck, Brandy.
All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Merry
Any
Christmas,
opposed?
everyone.
All right, we're adjourned.